Good morning, everyone, and welcome on this beautiful spring morning. It's such a delight to be with you this morning, to be a part of your Sunday experience, and I'm so grateful for all of you. Today, we're going to be talking about this idea of cheese and who moved my cheese. Now, here's the reason. Now, this is a book that was written, Who Moved My Cheese was written back in 1998 by Dr. Spencer Johnson. And back in the time, it is a very simple parable, but has very deep meaning around change. And if you were in the industry, certainly in software back at the time, this was almost essential reading. This was like required reading for any job that you were in to help us get used to this idea that things change and things change quicker than now, more than ever, quicker than we had ever experienced it before. Now, the reason I brought this up, or this came to mind, was that every year when the fifth graders graduate from the local elementary school here in Palo Alto, and they're getting ready to go to middle school. And in our elementary school, the principal always reads, "Who moved my cheese?" to our fifth graders as a way to really get them thinking about how they can look at this change a little bit differently, begin to realize how they look at change and what they can do to make it a more productive, make it a more joyful experience. Now, fifth grade, the transition from elementary to middle school is quite big, right? They go from one teacher, one classroom to multiple teachers, multiple classrooms, a schedule that they have to manage on their own. So you can, not only that, but during this age of children, when they're going from this late elementary school age to this middle school age, there's a lot of change going on in their own consciousness and their own experience. So it's a wonderful opportunity for them to really kind of sink into what does change really mean. Now, and the reason is the principal reads it to our kids as an extension of Project Cornerstone, and I've been asked this year to just create a couple of slides to help support that experience for them. And that really, so I read the book again, and that really brought to mind the fact that we are all in a boatload of change, that there's a lot of things going on right now, that our world has been rocked. And now, not for everyone. For some people, I have friends and colleagues who are like, well, not really much has changed. I'm still doing work the way I used to do work. I usually work out of my house or my office, and I'm the only one around doing my thing. And that hasn't changed for me. So for some people, this change of shelter in place hasn't affected them quite as much as others. So we each have our own experience of it. And this story, Who Moved My Cheese, is it a great example of it. So I'd like to paraphrase some of it for you. First off, some of the main characters. There are two mice, Sniff and Scurry. Now, these two mice do as mice do. They get up every morning, they put on their sneakers and their joggers. You've seen the mice do that, haven't you? And they go out into the maze of life in search of food, in search of cheese. So Sniff, his skill is to sniff out the cheese. So he gets up and he catches wind of where the cheese is, and he tells Scurry, and then Scurry runs off to try and find it. Now, as you can imagine, along the way, Scurry makes some wrong turns every once in a while. Scurry bumps into walls, but he just comes back and they get a better bearing and they keep going. So eventually, this one day, the mice, Sniff and Scurry, were scurrying around the maze of life, and they found a store of cheese. It was called Cheese House C, I believe it was. So they found Cheese House C, and they said, here we are. So they took off their shoes, they tied the laces and wrapped it around their necks just in case they needed the shoes very quickly. And they ate a little, they ate just what they needed, and then they went off on with their day. Each day, that was their routine. They took the exact same path to get to that cheese. They ate what they needed, and then they went on. Now, there are two more characters in this story, and those are little people the size of mice, but they act a little bit differently. They act as if they have this very functional brain. They act very similar to how people today might act, and their name are Hem and Haw. Now, Hem and Haw wanted to look for cheese in a different way. Of course, they used their brain, their intellect, and they were devising different plans to find the cheese. And eventually, they did find the cheese. They found Cheese House C. And when they did, they looked at it and said, "Look at all this cheese. This is amazing. There's enough cheese here to last forever." Now, the fifth character in this story is the cheese itself. Because you see, the cheese is a metaphor. It's a metaphor for all of those things that we think we need or that we think we want. Now, for Sniff and Scurry, it was very simple. The cheese was just simply food. It was simply, that's where I need to go to get my food. I'm going to go through my life and nibble what I need, and then I'm on my way. For Hem and Haw, it was a little bit different because Hem and Haw didn't look at it from the perspective of it's just cheese. To them, it was cheese with a capital C. To them, it was, we found cheese, therefore we can be happy. They put all of their happiness, all of their excitement, all of their energy in life into that cheese. In fact, over time, their habits changed. They stopped, worrying about how to get to the cheese. They slept in a little bit. They, as many of us do at these times, they didn't get out of their PJs until noon, if at all. And eventually they would go and they would find their cheese, and they looked at it as if this is my storehouse of cheese. It's all mine. So pretty soon, they got into these patterns, and Hem would throw cheese parties. Hem would invite their friends over to taste a flight of cheese from the 3-month, the 6-month, and the 1-year aged Gouda. And in the process of tasting that flight of cheese, he made sure to point out, don't whine about not getting enough cheese. Get it? Wine and cheese? Yeah. Okay. I got the look. Anyway, so the cheese became their focus in life. The cheese became, the raison d'etre. This is why we're here, because of this cheese. And they didn't notice that over time, the cheese was being depleted. They would throw parties, they would eat the cheese, they would enjoy the cheese, and they wouldn't worry about it. Well, eventually, they ran out of cheese at Cheese House 3, Cheese Station C, whatever. So when that happened, Sniff and Scurry said, okay, the cheese is gone. We had a feeling this was happening because we saw it deplete and diminish over time. We saw some of it get a little moldy. So they unlaced their shoes, they put on their shoes, and they went sniffing and scurrying out for more cheese. Hem and Haw, on the other hand, came in a few hours later, still in their pajamas, looked around, dismayed. Who moved my cheese? Said Hem. He was so angry and bitter because things have changed. Life had changed. The situation had changed, and he did not like it one bit. He started complaining, and he started blaming everyone else. There's somebody who took my cheese. This is just not right. I'm going to sit here until my cheese comes back. Someone's going to bring me my cheese. Now, Haw, on the other hand, was just shocked. I think Haw just kind of sat around thinking, I don't understand what happened. She was in a state of shock, and she was getting hungry, and she was getting a little nervous about the whole situation. And she kept trying to say, Hem or Haw, Hem, Haw, I don't know. Hem, what do we do? Hem would say, don't worry about it. I'm staying here. I'm waiting for my cheese. I demand my cheese. I deserve it. Well, eventually, Haw got into her thoughts that, maybe I need to go look for other cheese. I don't see Sniff and Scurry around anymore. Maybe they went to look for more cheese. Maybe they found more cheese. Hem, why don't you come with me? Nope, I'm not coming. So eventually Hem went out and she searched, and it took quite a bit of time. And she went through a process of really discovering how this change in her life changed her. It taught her lessons that she didn't even know existed. And she grew from them. Now, eventually, Hem found the other cheese at the next cheese station. And Sniff and Scurry were there. They smiled politely and nodded and went on their way. And when Haw got to that cheese station, she took off her shoes, she tied the laces, and she put it around her neck, just like Sniff and Scurry did, because she realized, I might need to do something different next time change comes around. Here are some of the things that Haw, I'll get it right, that Haw learned along her journey. Every time she came up with a new idea, this new thought came to her, this new learning, she would write it down on the walls in hope that Hem would eventually follow her. And then Hem would see the writings and then know which way to go. And here's some of the wisdom that Haw received. The more important your cheese is, the more you want to hold on to it. And if you don't change, you will become extinct. How many of us look at the things that we have in life with that capital C cheese? How many of us are looking at either, our relationships, our job, our patterns, our normal routines, how we look at that as, if I have those things, then I can be happy. But if I lose those things, if things start to diminish, if those relationships start to get a little mold on them, then life is coming to an end. Instead of just slicing off the mold and having the good cheese, we focus on the mold. So Ha wrote on the walls these ideas. Here's another one she wrote. What would you do if you weren't afraid? One of the biggest challenges she had at the beginning was, things have changed, but what do I do? I'm afraid to go out into the world. I'm afraid to go back into the maze. I had it so nice here. I had it so easy. How is it that I can go out and start all over again, to look for a new pattern or a new set of cheese, to look for my new good, because it doesn't look like it did before? What would I do if I weren't afraid? She also wrote, smell the cheese often so you know when it's getting old. Pay attention. Pay attention to our relationships. Pay attention to the work that we do in our careers and our jobs. Pay attention to the weeding that has to be done. Whatever's yours to do, focus on it and give it good attention. Don't take it for granted. Don't pretend like it's always going to be there. For everything in life changes. If there's one thing that doesn't change in life, it's change. Life is always in the process of change. And yet we don't always see it. Even when we're in a normal routine, life is still changing. We still have the opportunity to grow with it if we choose. Movement in a new direction helps you find new cheese. When you stop being afraid, you feel good, and it's safer to search in the maze than remain in a cheeseless situation. How many of us are sitting in that same situation thinking, well, this is my lot in life? Thinking I can't do anything better. Life is, this pandemic thing. Some people are thinking we'll never get back to the same way of doing things. I've heard this. Some people have said that, people will get so used to connecting over Zoom and over electronics that they won't want to connect with each other. They won't want to hug each other again. Now, we may be a little bit out from hugging, but I believe that people will still come back to that idea of wanting that connection. So things may change. Church may change. Your job may change. The crowded workrooms with people lined up one after the other, that might change. But what doesn't have to change is that spirit within you. That spirit within you to seek your highest good, to go out and search for something that may be a little bit better than what you're currently experiencing. The author of the book said, what you're afraid of is never as bad as what you imagine. The fear you let build up in your mind is worse than the situation that actually exists. This was Hem's strength. Hem was a master storyteller. As soon as something happened, good or bad, Hem would wrap a whole story around it. When the cheese was there, it's like, look at me, I'm the king of cheese. Please come and taste of my cheese. Yes, not you. You got to stay away. But everyone else, yes, you're welcome to taste of mine, not too much, for this is my cheese, and I'm the king of cheese. How many of us do that with our daily lives? Instead of being grateful for what we have and using it for its purpose, not overusing it, not eating too much cheese, but just allowing it to satisfy us. Whatever that is in our lives, whether it's money, whether it's your creativity, your TV, your favorite TV shows, which my son just realized, oh my gosh, we have to wait another year before we can watch the next Jack Ryan because nobody is filming right now. Can you believe we have to wait that long? The things that we have to give up. We watched the NFL draft. He did. He watched the NFL draft to see who was coming up. All with the anticipation of, well, hopefully we get to see them play in a few months. And we may or may not. So when we tell the stories around the things that are happening to us, that's when the great suffering comes into play. Things have changed for us, and there is grief. There is grief whenever something that we're really attached to, something that we really love, something that is very meaningful for us shifts. There is a sense of grief within us, and that's a natural thing. The challenge is, how do we manage that? Not even how do we manage the grief, but how do we move through the grief? So often what happens is we feel that feeling of grief. We feel that emotion. We feel that energy. I was recently watching a video by Dr. David Hawkins this last week, where he was talking about intense grief. And he was talking about how to live through intense grief and how to heal from that. And the one thing that he said that really stuck out with me is that the only way you can deal with grief is by moving through it, by allowing it to be. If we resist it, then we're just suppressing it, and that grief becomes a powder keg within us. If we look at trying to figure it out, even, here's the grief, but here's why I feel I'm grieving, because somebody moved my cheese, somebody stole my cheese, somebody changed my relationship, somebody, fired me, or I got laid off. This is all the reason. And whenever we go into that idea, that thinking about why are we feeling grief, that just creates more fuel for the grief. If we stick in that mode, then we're in an endless grief cycle. So instead, Dr. Hawkins says, don't focus on those reasons. Just focus on the energy. And this really resonated with me, because if you think about whenever you're feeling those emotions, we can give them names. But if we're really emotionally aware, we have an idea of how they're showing up within us. We can feel the emotion, the energy, the vibration within us. And what I've begun to do is just to start focusing on that energy, not from the standpoint of, look at the energy I have, but simply, here's the energy, just noticing it without any blame, shame, or guilt, without blaming someone else, without blaming myself, without thinking, without spiritually bypassing and thinking, nope, I can't feel that. I have to feel happy thoughts, happy thoughts, happy thoughts. Myrtle Fillmore, in one of her healing letters, wrote, you can't suppress your feelings. You can't deal with your feelings in that way, because they come up again. David Hawkins says, when a grief or an experience happens like this change, or like a minor upset within the household, because when we're all stuck together for long periods, things get a little more tense. We get a little more tender. We get a little more reactive. I know I certainly do. And instead of reacting to what happened, to the data, if we move to the idea of, okay, here's the energy I'm feeling. I can experience the energy, and when I'm experiencing the energy, I allow it to dissipate. I allow it to flow out of me. I don't focus on it. I don't worry about if it's there or not. It's just, here's the energy. I'm just allowing it to burn off. I started doing that through my meditations. When I'm noticing that I'm feeling more stress and anxiety as going into the silence, I spend some time with that stress and anxiety and just allow it to burn off. I try not to make any meaning out of it, because when I make meaning out of it, it just gets worse. I try not to give any thought or about what caused it, because when I do that, it just gets worse. Instead, I just allow that energy to burn, and then I focus myself on the energy of the divine flowing in. I focus my energy on appreciation, on gratitude for what I have in my life, on the joy that my cat, who's wandering around our deck here somewhere, jumping on computers as we speak, focusing on the joy that he's having just being around us and hanging out with us. I focus on the breeze that's flowing through the umbrella, that's flowing through the wonderful plants that are around me, that's reminding me to be present. Instead of worrying about that energy, that grief, I just allow it to be, so I can move through it. So I can move through it and express that trueness that is within me, that true joy, that infinite peace that's always available within me, if I allow it to be. If I stop making meaning out of the upset, out of the coronavirus, out of the shelter in place, if I just acknowledge that this is the situation at the moment and it will change, my life may have changed. My life will continue to change. But if I look at it from that standpoint of and sometimes even laugh at my life, laugh at myself, become lighthearted, I'm able to see the gifts and the blessings that are arising even within the situation. You know, that idea that we have within us, that divine essence and that divine nature has been a lesson that's been here for thousands of years. It didn't start with unity. It's what Jesus talked about when he said, seek first that kingdom of God. And he also said that kingdom of God is within. It's within us. It's not out there in the capital C cheese. We may enjoy cheese. We may find these things in our life that we really appreciate. But if we remember to come first from that idea that we have everything we need within us, even amongst the change, you have within you right now the creativity to find a new career, to find a new way to find your next block of cheese. You have within you the sense of appreciation and gratitude to see the good that's in your life right now. You have within you the love to create harmony within your relationships, that harmonizing power that connects and binds us, even if we can't connect with each other personally. We can do it through the phone, through FaceTime, through Zoom. We can do it across the street. As our neighbors play pickleball, they make sure to stay away from each other, but they're in the middle of the street playing pickleball. Just another way to connect, another way to find that joy in life. You have within you everything you need to draw upon the wisdom of the universe, to know and define and discern your next steps. You have everything within you to rise above whatever grief you're experiencing, to feel through it, to allow it to be, to move your energy through that state, to raise your vibration to a higher level of energy, to an energy of joy, to an energy of love, to an energy of bliss, by simply acknowledging that which you have. Ralph Waldo Emerson said this: what lies behind you and what lies in front of you pales in comparison to what lies within you. You have everything you need within you right now to rise above this experience, to connect with that internal wisdom, to connect with that internal understanding, that infinite wisdom that's a part of you, that place within you that is the divine essence, that spark of divinity, that higher consciousness, whatever word works for you. You have within you the ability to connect with that and to bring that into your consciousness, to bring that into your words, to bring it into your actions, to bring it into your life, so that we may experience and express a greater understanding of this truth, of our oneness with God, of our oneness with that infinite potential, of our oneness with that infinite source of good in life. You have everything within you. Let's take that into our time of meditation and prayer. I'll invite you now to take a nice, deep cleansing breath. To close your eyes if that feels comfortable, or simply soften your gaze as we move into an experience of the inner, as we allow the outer experience to simply fade. And with our breath, we acknowledge the feelings that we have, whatever feeling we may be feeling, whatever energy is within us. Just allow the energy to express itself, to diffuse itself, to release itself. We don't have to worry about the reason it's there, the cause, the effect. Just focus on allowing that energy to express, to diffuse, to release. As those thoughts come up and as those emotions come up, we simply acknowledge them and let them float by. We don't dwell on our emotions or our feelings or our thoughts. We just allow them to drift by. No blame, no shame, no guilt. And as we do, we allow our consciousness to return to that state of oneness with the divine presence within you. With each breath, we allow that idea of peace to well up within us, to well up within you. With each breath, we allow that energy of harmony to vibrate from you, that energy of gratitude to well up and vibrate from you, that energy of peace as we consciously move into a time of stillness, into a time of silence. From this energy of oneness, we express our highest mind action, we express our prayer. As we affirm, I am one with the divine flow of life. I am one with the energy of bliss, the energy of joy. I am one with divine wisdom, knowing that I can draw upon this wisdom at any moment of the day, and I allow that wisdom to guide me. I am one with divine love, knowing that harmonizing energy now works in and through my body, my mind, my spirit, bringing me into harmony with the one presence, that one power, the divine flow of life, God, the good omnipotence. And with a nice, deep cleansing breath, I allow that feeling of appreciation and gratitude to come to mind. I am grateful for all that I have in life. I'm grateful for this present moment and our ability to connect with one another. I'm grateful for this ability for me to draw upon that divine wisdom within me so that I can shine my light and be a beacon of peace, be the expression of wisdom, be the harmonizing power in my world. For all of this joy, for all of this realization, for this understanding of who we've come here to be, we are joyfully grateful. We are richly, richly blessed. And we say thank you, thank you, thank you, Spirit. And so it is. Amen.